good day, beloveds. How do you do? Welcome to Talks from the Heart with Mandy, brought to you by Agape Wellness Coaching, a place where being begins at root. I am Mandy, a spirituality teacher and transformational relationship coach, as well as founder of Agape Wellness Coaching, and I'll be journeying with you, talking heart to heart. Welcome once again, beloveds, to yet another episode of Talks from the Heart with Mandy, where we explore the depths of spiritual and mental wellness, as well as personal growth and self-discovery in our relationships. I'm your host, Mandy, still journeying with you, talking heart to heart. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we continue to reflect, explore, and journey deeper into the questions that shape our human and spiritual life experiences. Now, as always, I encourage you to grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and settle in as we begin today's discussion. While you're at it, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Throughout history and across cultures, humanity has from one generation to the next continued to ponder existence. It is this ability to chew over matters like the higher power, God, source of existence, death, and the afterlife, purpose and meaning of life that makes being human worthwhile. Our ability to question and seek answers to the mysteries of life is, in fact, the key element to what it means to being who we are, and that is human. Very often, our exploration and seeking brings us to a crossroad. We often come to a crossroad on one's life's journey where we find ourselves asking questions about our relationships, whether be it a relationship with God, self, others, and most importantly, the crisis that we face in seeking meaning and connection to something higher than what we think we already know or what we've been taught through traditional practices and religion, right? So we find ourselves at this place of crisis where we're seeking to connect to more, which is beyond what we think we already know. And beloved, for me, it is the crossroads that we come to on one's life's journey, the crises that we face as we seek meaning and connection that makes doing what I do worthwhile, whether it be it partnering with you on this podcast or you reaching out to me to partner with you on your journey, on your seeker's journey through our services at Agape Wellness Coach. And this is something that I live for. It is something that I live for. I get excited about it. And I must tell you that today's episode is in fact the beginning of our exploration of spirituality and spiritual wellness. Today, we're diving into a timeless and often very confusing subject, which is spirituality versus religion. What are they? How do they differ? And why do people so often blur the lines between the two? Why do we so often blur the lines between the two? Truly speaking, it is understandable that society would blur the lines between the two. For crying out loud, even our dictionaries defines spirituality as relating to religion or religious beliefs, or as something that is to do with the church or the clergy. But when one takes a closer look at spirituality and what it is, what it means from one social context to the next, the dictionary definition of this word spirituality is very limited, if you ask me. But then it isn't about me. It's just, I love all things spirituality. I love all things mental wellness so much that I'm willing to take a turn where others do not want to take a turn. So yeah, for today, I will not venture into the exploration of the various cultural contexts, but I will limit our conversation to the explaining the differences and of course the common elements between spirituality and religion. Perhaps in future episodes, we can explore the various cultures and their understanding of spirituality and religion. So let's settle in, take a deep breath together, and open our hearts and minds to this conversation. Let us open our hearts and minds to this conversation. deep breath with me. Again. Thank you. I hope your heart and mind are open as we continue our discussion. When one hears the words spirituality and religion, they might almost sound interchangeable. They might sound almost interchangeable. Many use them in the same breath, yet they are not quite the same. They both point us towards meaning, truth, and the sacred, but they do so in different ways. Religion at its core is a structured system of beliefs, practices, and traditions. It provides community, shared rituals, and guidelines for living. It is a collective. Spirituality, on the other hand, it is more personal, more fluid. It is about one's own experience of the divine, of self, of life itself. It is not confined to a system, but unfolds uniquely for each individual. It unfolds uniquely for each individual. So every person will experience their spirituality differently as they go on their seeker's journey, on their journey inward to connect. Now, you may still be there thinking, oh, so the two are not the same. What are the differences? What are the major differences? What are major differences between spirituality and religion? Now, one has to remember that most of us think that the two are the same. And this is because we often look on the surface. Right now, we're going to take a closer look at the major differences so that we can understand the difference between the two and to also embrace what spirituality and or religion may mean to each of us. So, yeah, that is what we're doing here. Now, let us start with trying to understand what spirituality is and what religion is. What is spirituality? What is religion? We want to first understand what spirituality is and what religion is, right? So what is spirituality? Spirituality is the spirit's man way of being an expression. It is the posture of the spirit, man's conscious awareness of their connectedness to God, source, to self, others, to the environment, and all that is part of the greater whole. Spirituality speaks to humanity's exploration and expression of meaning and purpose, and a manner in which we experience our connectedness to source, self, others, and our environment's nature included. Spirituality has its roots in our beings. Now, you may say, well, that's great. What is religion then? Well, religion, beloved, is a man-made construct with beliefs that may vary from one culture to the next, one religion to the next, and it is formed from a collection of ideological consolidations from philosophers, scholars, men of science, folklores, and thought leaders of past for intentional creation of a regulatory structure that serves for guiding humanity and most of the times used as a tool for politics, a guideline that would determine laws for communities who participate in the religion, the beliefs they are to follow, the deity they are to worship, morality codes, and more often than not, shaping politics of nations and regions where that religion is practiced. So yeah, that's what religion is, and it once again may vary from one region to the next, one culture to the next. When we look at the varying facets of both spirituality and religion, we see just how different they are. Religion points us outwards to sacred texts, religious leaders, or traditions, whilst spirituality invites us inward to intuition, personal experience, and direct connection. And this we can see in the relationship between the Pharisees and Messiah. The Pharisees focused so much on the law, what they considered sacred text, that they missed the Messiah in their midst. Yeshua, on the other hand, was teaching people spirituality, connection to each other and God. Yeshua taught people to seek connection with God above all else, whilst the Pharisees emphasized their focus on enforcement of law and stringent practice of rituals above connectedness to God and each other. Well, if you've been exposed to Christianity and its sacred texts, you may have heard from these texts that Yeshua rebuked the Pharisees on many occasions. Their focus on the letter caused them to miss the presence of the same person of God that is spoken of and prophesied in their letters. They condemned Yeshua because he did not do things the way they thought they ought to be done, or how they thought they knew that things were to be done. Have you ever been condemned by the religious? Have you ever been condemned by the religious, where you know something intuitively that this is what it is, and you share that with somebody and they're like, no, it's not in the Bible, it's not in the sacred text? Have you ever been in that situation where they'll even Bible bash you, hit you with a Bible on the head sometimes to make sure that you stay on the path that they want you to stay in? There are times when the Spirit of God tells you something and you think to yourself, I have never seen that in the sacred text. And you ignore the message because you think you know better than God, and find yourself in a more troubling situation, and a more troubled situation than you'd have been had you followed what most of us call intuition. In this case, one strips authority from the Spirit that grows in them and assigns it to sacred texts. And sometimes they would even think that their religious leader is who they should seek guidance from. They would even ask their religious leader for guidance instead of taking time to discern the Spirit. Religion depends more on the letter than the Spirit. Yet, we are told that the Spirit of God dwells within us. How then are we seeking without for what is already within? Always be self-aware. Always be self-aware. Recognize when you're assigning authority that belongs to the Spirit to a belief system. The difference between the two is that one can easily dismiss the Holy Spirit's voice and leading. One's inner truth. One of these can dismiss the Holy Spirit's voice and leading. One's inner truth can easily be dismissed. It can be very easy for one to keep the door shut to the Holy Spirit's knocking on the door of our hearts, whilst the other will swing the doors open and welcome the Holy Spirit's presence, voice, and leading. So spirituality is solely anchored on the unfolding of revelatory word of truth in God, the inner knowing that is imprinted in one's spirit man, in one's inner man. Remember, we are little facets of God. We are fragments of the source. And as fragments of source, we each carry in us the Spirit of God. And the Spirit of God will exercise its expression through each and every one of us, revealing to each and every one of us truths that the next person cannot reveal to us, truths about ourselves and God that the next person cannot reveal to us. Not even religion can provide us that. So we need to be careful never to assign the authority that belongs to God, the Spirit of God, to authority figures of religion or sacred texts. We cannot do that. They each have their place in our lives. We cannot dismiss the Spirit of God, our inner man, to appease the systems. We can't. It should never be. Now we're going to look at the aspect of practice. Religion tends to be ritualized. It tends to be ritualized, whether be it worship services, prayers, fasting, and holidays. There are things, there are rituals being performed for each thing, for whatever your participation. There's something to be done in a certain manner as guided by the prescripts of that religion, right? And remember that worship does not start and end with worshiping God. It starts with and as worshiping God, but later extends to the exaltation of religious beliefs above God or all else, where secret texts become dogma and religious beliefs become the only truth, and all else is null and void. Where other people's way of life and expression are invalidated because of what we believe. Where one's religions, philosophies, and sacred texts become dogma and the only way. Religion can be more focused on self in a very sneaky manner. It may seem like it's all about God, while it is more about self, or the holy man, what we call man of God, and what we believe than it is about God and souls. It can be more about what we do and do not do. Sometimes exhausting self-imposed limitations that we exercise in the name of the deity of our religion. It can be more about doing than being that which God says we are. It can be so much about doing than being that which we are created to be. I remember I used to be an everyday church attendee, preaching the gospel everywhere. Anyone that gave me a listening ear would hear from me. I made it a point to share my religion and my beliefs in God daily. I read my Bible, had a guided diet as per religious prescription, giving alms to the poor and ensuring that I say my prayers as many times as I could, as often as I could throughout the day. And this was my daily practice. Practiced frequent and, more often than not, prolonged fast. This was my way of being a godly child of God. I tried not to gossip and was intentional about not hurting others, even if it meant omitting the truth. As far as I was concerned, I was not lying. I was just not telling them what they ought to know, just so as not to hurt them. I went to confession every week and attended benediction, or what we call adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, every day. I'd feel guilty if I was ever unable to attend benediction or mass due to work. I'd force to make my way to the chapel just to go to adoration, even if it was very late in the night after work. I'd be dog tired, but I'd still go to the chapel to avoid guilt. I did not want to miss a day of church. I did not want to miss going to mass, going to adoration. It just didn't feel right. I seemed like a perfect person in my religious practices, but only if one could see, if only one could take a closer look, they would see that I harbored in my heart and mind things that were far from perfect. I was judgmental. Nothing was right unless it was done according to religious prescript. I was judging others. I was judging other people's belief systems without understanding. I remember I was talking to a colleague and asking them about a statuette of Lord Ganesha that was on their desk in the office. When she explained to me what it was and what Ganesha does, I unleashed on that poor lady. I unleashed on the poor lady doctrine according to my religion. I told her how wrong it was to have a God that was different from my God. But it wasn't about me saying, oh, my God is right. It was, oh no, God says you should have no other gods other than the Lord who is God. And I was saying all of these things according to the Bible. I did not know anything about her religion. I did not bother to get to know anything. I did not ask any questions to understand why she has Ganesha, why she has Devi, why she has Shiva, why she has Krishna. I didn't want to know all of those things. To me, it sounded like, okay, yeah, you're worshipping idols. That's what I was thinking, and that is what I was saying to her. I was like, no, your God is not God. My God, the God of my religion, is God. That's what I said to her. I was mean, but the funny thing is, I was very polite in my meanness. I told her how wrong it was to have a God that was different from my God, and how other religions were counterfeit religions, and how she needed to turn to Yeshua. I was saying my words with politeness and softness, trying to disciple her to what I believe is the only path, without taking time to understand where she comes from, without taking into cognizance the fact that we all come from different parts of the world, both immigrants in the country of our residence. I did not consider that we could have been influenced by our upbringing. I did not consider what could have influenced what and how she believed. It was all about me, what I know, what and how I was doing what I was doing. This was self-righteousness and selfishness disguised as service to God. Fortunate for me, this lady was gracious. In fact, I saw in her the qualities of Yeshua. I saw in her the qualities of Yeshua. I'm telling you, she was so gracious. I saw the qualities of Yeshua in her more than I have ever in any of the Christians and Catholic people from my church. She graciously listened to me and asked that I share my beliefs with her, and she shared her beliefs with me patiently without judgment. I was judgmental, but she patiently shared what she knew and how she believed, her practices. She shared all this patiently without judgment, but with a lot of love, a lot more love than I have ever seen in any of my fellow Christians and Catholics. She was without judgment. Even after I had offended her with my polite tongue lashing, she was willing to learn from me and share with me. It was in that I saw what Yeshua was talking about. It was in this interaction that I learned more about spirituality and fully opened myself to learning beyond my limited religious dogma. Of course, I apologized. Very embarrassed, but I still had pride. I was embarrassed, but there was still that self-righteousness in me. Even my apology was, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about. But there was this posturing, spiritual posturing that is, but still my religion is right. Without saying it in many words, I still looked at her statuette and thought to myself, yeah, no, I won't be doing this. I did not understand what it was. I did not want to understand, but her graciousness, her outpouring of love made me open my heart somehow, even when there was still that little ounce of pride and religious righteousness. She opened my heart and I apologized, really. I was sincere in my apology. It's just, I still had that pride, that religious pride. We all know about it. Husband, wherever you are, I thank you. I thank you. And I'm sorry I troubled you on that day, but I thank you. I know we parted ways and I never got to tell you thank you. See, spirituality is open-ended. From prayer, meditation, journaling, nature walks, breath work, spirituality is something that is rooted in us, and we practice what the Spirit reveals to us to practice, what the inner man prompts you to practice. When the Holy Spirit in you says, pray, meditate, stretch, take a walk in nature, see your oneness in nature. When the Holy Spirit invites you to something, it is not all set in stone that there is yoga, there is this, and it's not set in stone. As the Holy Spirit reveals to you and unfolds to you the practices that are suitable for your spirit man, your inner man, then you follow the Holy Spirit leading. You follow the Holy Spirit's leading. Spirituality opened the door for me to see Christ in my brothers and sisters, the Spirit of God in all of creation, and my oneness with all these. It held the door open for me to be that which God created me to be, and all that God says I am. The practices of spirituality led me within, and there I could see how calloused my heart had become due to unhealed traumas, unresolved questions that I had pinned to the board of my mind, the self-righteousness dressed in the garb of religiosity that more often than not bordered on being extremist in my belief. In my looking inwardly, I noticed the many times I dismissed and grieved the Holy Spirit because of religion, and the many lives affected by my desire to be religiously perfect. My religiosity affected the external parts of my life. Well, what is very important to God, what God is most concerned about, was left unattended. My heart was unchanged. It was hardened by painful experiences, my religious perfectionism, and my very tight grip onto dogma. This hardened my heart. My religion was convenient but not effective. I was like a Pharisee that cleaned the outside of a pot, leaving the inside dirty, as Yeshua said. I tell you, I thank God for that interaction that opened me to be open to something other than that which I knew. Of course, I did not necessarily follow her religious practices, but my spirit, my being, was open to learning and understanding that the Spirit of God is in everything and in each and every one of us, right? And another aspect to look to is belonging. Belonging. Religion is about belonging, community, identity, and shared faith. It is about people coming together to share their belief in an agreed upon deity of their religion, creating a sense of belonging in their religious community. While spirituality, on the other hand, is about individual exploration of self and the universe, it is a journey of self-incorporation and oneness with the whole in which one exists. Spirituality says one belongs, and the spirit man guides them from within through the spirit man's exercise of its expression in wholeness and truth, cooperating with God, nature, and all of creation in spirit of one, in the spirit of oneness, right? So it is important that we understand that, yes, belonging is something. A lot of us want to belong, but in that belonging, do we belong in a spirit that is rooted in oneness? Oneness is something that is very important. There are many communities where people feel they belong, but there isn't harmony, there isn't oneness, there isn't cohesion. You know, it's just a community. We believe in the same thing, therefore we are one, even if oneness is lacking. And this happens to be the case in most of these religions. But hey, I'm nobody. I'm just a lady here trying to share what I share. Another aspect to look into is the goal of religion. Religion emphasizes salvation, alignment to the divine will, or life beyond death. It focuses on recruiting people to join whatever the belief system, living what they may be practicing for whatever the recruiter says is the only way and the only truth. The goal of religion is to bring people to one belief system that is a belief system of just one and not the other, right? And it's about life after salvation, alignment with God's will. But the thing is, how does one know God's will if they are not well aligned within themselves? Because God's will is the will of the Spirit of God in you. Spirituality emphasizes awakening, self-realization in unity with all that is, and inner transformation whilst living life now and beyond. Right. So a lot of people do not live. A lot of people are not alive. They're busy practicing. They're busy trying to be in alignment with God by doing, by practicing rituals and all sorts of things, not aligning with God within themselves, not transforming within themselves, not becoming one with God in themselves. They are seeking alignment with divine will outside of themselves. They are practicing a whole lot of things, forgetting to live because their focus is on life beyond death. But we have to remember, in order for one to attain life after death, one has to be alive here. If you're dead here, you're going to be dead on the other side. You are going to be dead on the other side. You have to understand, if you're not alive in this life, You're not going to be alive in the afterlife. You have to be alive here for you to be alive on the other side. The Spirit gives life. The Spirit of God gives life in this life and in the afterlife. Your rituals, your dogmas, whatever it is, your practices, stringent practices that are not allowing you to live life are in fact killing you. They are in fact keeping you dead instead of being alive. And it does not matter. Again, I say it does not matter your religion. There are people that are so focused on sacred text that they forget to live. There are people that are so focused on the laws, regulations, and this and that they forget to live. And you have to understand, what is on this side is on the other side. What you are on this side will be you on the other side. If you were a dull, crazy, and cranky person on this side, you're going to be that on the other side. In fact, you're going to be a ghost that is disturbing people. I'm kidding. But yeah, you need to understand. The Spirit of God gives life. The laws of God are in your spirit. They are in your heart. They're written on the tablet of your heart. Universal laws. There are laws that govern the cosmos, that govern life. They govern you, whether you ignore them or not, whether you put them aside to exalt your secret texts. Universal laws, cosmic laws are there. They're going to govern you, whether you acknowledge them or not. You have to understand that which you are on this side of life, you will be on the other side. If you were a cranky, ever screaming, Bible version person like I was, you're going to be that on the other side. You are going to be that on the other side. Trust me. You cannot claim alignment with divine will when you ignore the law of God, the natural laws that are written on the tablet of your heart, of your spirit. You cannot claim you want alignment with the divine will. You want alignment with the will of God if you are not aligned within yourself, if you're not aligned with the spirit man within you, if you're not aligned with the Spirit of God within you. There are the laws of God. There are the laws of self that you ignore every day as well. Here's the thing. Every person is different. There are things in us that God has put in our spirit that keep us unique from one person to the next. We have our unique talents and gifts, and we have the things that make us different from each other, even if most of our makeup is the same. Those are laws of self that we sometimes do not care to attend to, and that is also divine will. When we shun our uniqueness to belong, to align to divine will in accordance to somebody else's ideas of what divine will is, we are not in alignment. Alignment within is alignment with the divine. Spirituality emphasizes awakening, self-realization in unity with all that is, and inner transformation. Inner transformation and alignment with the divine and oneness whilst living now and beyond. And of course, there are minor differences. There are smaller, subtler differences too. Religion speaks in the language of sin and grace, heaven and hell, while spirituality speaks words of healing, wholeness, transformation of oneself, awakening, consciousness, and exploration. There's the vibration, energy, and all of those things that we speak. See, it is the smaller differences are more in the language. Religion looks both backward to history, sacred history, and forward to eternity through doctrine, letter, dogma, prescribed lenses, while spirituality is rooted in now, in presence, awareness, and acknowledging the truth as it unfolds from the heart of the Holy Spirit or the Spirit man. Religion can be exclusive, requiring membership or creed, while spirituality tends to be inclusive, drawing from many paths. It can be inclusive, drawing from many paths and traditions, whilst religion is requiring of membership or creed. So we're moving forward to why do people confuse the two? Why people confuse the two? Now, why do we confuse the two though? Why do we so often confuse spirituality and religion? I believe the reason we confuse the two is because while these two are different, they come from the desire that is rooted in the core of our beings. That is our desire for oneness with God and all that is. In humanity's exploration and seeking for meaning and purpose, where there were no immediate answers, religion was birthed to fulfill the void, to provide ready and prescribed answers, to answer questions that needed further exploration to reach understanding and the truest answer from one spirit man. Not because the two are rooted in our core, in our inner longing for oneness with God. It is no wonder people blur the lines between religion and spirituality. I mean, they both address human longing for meaning, for belonging, for transcendence. So, hey, they both call us to compassion, to kindness, to reverence for life. That is the reason why we blur the lines between the two. Many people live at the intersection. They are religious and spiritual at the same time. They may attend church, temple, or mosque while meditating, practicing yoga, journeying their inner spiritual paths. There are people who live the spiritual life, but not religious. And of course, there are those who are religious, but not spiritual. One can exist without the other, but it's a matter of balance, right? And then there is a language. How often do we hear someone say, I'm very spiritual, but not religious? Or I'm religious about my morning practice. The words weave into each other in everyday life. It is important to understand that one can exist without the other. One can be spiritual yet not religious, or be religious without being spiritual. One can also be both spiritual and religious, right? So, hey, there are and will always be people who discover spirituality in and through religion. And there are and will always be those who find themselves inclined to pure spirituality without affiliation to any religion. So we have to understand both and be accepting and accommodating of both. I have learned through personal experience and through working with and supporting others on their journeys that sometimes it is a matter of balance. One can choose either or be both in a manner that is balanced and cultivates one's spiritual and mental wellness. It is all about balance. One can be unbalanced in either view and practice. Certain people can be spiritual yet unbalanced in their view and practice, and there are those who are religious that are unbalanced in their view. One can be a zealot to their religion to the point of self-destruction, even to the detriment of others, just as much as one can be so far gone and overly immersed in their practice and expression of their spirituality that they may end up neglecting the state of their physical wellness to the point of their detriment. Either way, one needs to be grounded and balanced, not forgetting that they have a vehicle for their expression that they may need to attend to. More often, we're not willing to accept that both spiritual and religious bliss can be addicting just as a drug. So remember, balance is key. All right. Here's a thought that I hope close. Religion offers the gift of structure and belonging. Spirituality offers us the gift of freedom and personal connection. One is like a riverbank giving shape and direction, and the other is like the water itself, flowing and alive. Sometimes we need the structure, sometimes we need freedom, sometimes we need both. So it's all up to us, according to your needs. Flow Oh my, time is gone, and I'm going to leave you with this. These are a few questions for the heart. As you reflect on your journey, I want you to consider this. What role has religion played in my life? What role has religion played in my life? What role has spirituality played in my life? Where do they meet in me? Where do they diverge? And most importantly, what helps me feel most connected, most alive, most whole? What makes me feel most connected, most alive, and most whole? Now, beloved, this will be it for the day. And I want you to remember that this podcast show with all its content is available to you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, and of course our website at www.agapewellness-center.com. Like, subscribe, share, and tune in again for more. You can also reach out to us through our contact page on our website or by emailing info@agapewellness-center.com. Now, beloveds, I want to thank you for sharing this space with me today. Whether you find yourself walking a religious path, a spiritual path, or weaving the two together, may you continue to walk in truth, love, and openness. Be gracious to yourself. This is your host, Mandy, signing out. Until the next time, I send you light, peace, and deep gratitude. Shalom.